on page 471 at the bottom, you have the sign law. And I'd like you to add this note to it. The key thing to recognize in the sign law is not the letters. The letters are actually, you're going to ignore the letters for probably the rest of your life. All that matters is that big A goes with little a, big B goes with little b. In other words, an angle always goes with its opposite side. That is the super important thing about the sign law. So, in order to use the sign law, you have to know an angle and its opposite side. And then if you know one other piece of information, you can figure out the whole triangle. But you won't be able to use the sign law unless you have an angle and its opposite side given. So that's going to be something that we're going to look for. A couple of other definitions from grade 9 and 10. Just to remember, do you remember what angle of elevation means? Sometimes they call it angle of inclination. So whenever they say it has an angle of elevation while you take your horizontal line and you look up, that would be an angle of elevation because you're going to be going up as a result. And the opposite definition is an angle of depression. Again, if you had a horizontal line, now you're looking down from that horizontal line. That would be an angle of depression. So yesterday we were introduced to the sign law. Today we're going to be doing questions, working on it. So here's our first example. Number one big mistake that students make with triangles now is you either use a squared plus b squared equals c squared or SOHCAHTOA when you're not allowed to. So first, look, is there a 90-degree angle? No. If there's no 90-degree angle, you can't use SOHCAHTOA. Doing so right at the beginning will just mean that you'll get exactly 0 marks on that whole question. Nothing will be right. How do we know we can use the sign law, though? Well, you see here, you know an angle and the opposite side. So as soon as you see, hey, I have 3 pieces of information, and I know an angle and its opposite side, then I can use the sign law. In this question, they want us to find the length of G to H, which is right here. They want us to find J. So notice in our triangle, we don't have ABC. We have GHJ. The letters are different than what's in your formula. So in your formula, I'm telling you, the letters don't matter so much as long as you use sides and their opposite angle together. So if I want to find J, do I know the opposite angle to J? Yes. Now which form of the formula will we use? I always say put what you want to find in the numerator of one fraction. So I want to find J. J would go with the angle of 44. So I write J over sine of 44 equals, and then I need to make another fraction, and this is why it's really important that you know 2 things. We know the 7.8 goes with the 51. So I can write 7.8 and sine of 51 on the bottom. So if you put the sides on top on one side, you have to put the sides on top of the other side. If you put sine on top on one side, you put sine on top of the other side. And whatever you're trying to solve for, it's going to make your life easier if you put it in the numerator. So I wanted to solve for J, I put it in the numerator. Can you see that it's not very hard to get J by itself? We would just need to multiply both sides by sine of 44. And when you multiply a fraction by something, keep it purple, right, that sine of 44 will go into your numerator, because technically it's like sine of 44 over 1, so it makes sense that it would only multiply in your numerator. And now you have J by itself. So we can go to our calculator. You have the fraction button, really nice to use. 7.8 sine of 44 divided by sine of 51. Push enter. 6.972. And then read. Does it have units? Did they ask me to round to something specific? Yes. To the nearest 10. So that will be, to the nearest 10th is actually tricky rounding, right? Because this would round up to a 0, so it becomes 7.0. And there are units. So the very last step, you could lose a mark in the very last step if you don't round correctly, because you didn't reread the question, and you forgot your units. You could lose a half mark for each of those things. So be very careful at the end to reread things and check.
But you still lose a half mark if you don't include the decimal zero.
Yes, because it says to the nearest 10. So 7.0 is telling someone it's more accurate than just 7. Like, I was accurate enough, I knew it was 7.0. Circle question number 3.